Hello ladies and gentlemen, it's the Historical Gamer once again, and today I'm going to be doing a little bit of news reporting. Sorry, I don't normally do that, but I thought it was important to bring to your attention because I was looking through YouTube. Some pretty big news in the strategy gaming community came up within the last day. Actually, came up just yesterday. And I was looking across YouTube, and I didn't see anyone reporting on it, at least not any dedicated videos to it. And there was a pretty big announcement for strategy gamers, and I assume most of you who watch this channel are strategy gamers or war gamers, which is can be a variety of strategy games. But anyway, you're probably wondering at this point, what the hell are you blabbering on about? So let's get to the point. Just yesterday, Paradox Interactive announced that they were going to be going public. They were going to be issuing an IPO within the next 6 months. So what does that mean? Well, in short, what it means is that Paradox is looking at becoming a publicly traded company. It was reported on DI Digital, a Swedish website, that CEO Fredrik Wester had announced his intention for Paradox Interactive to go public within the next 6 months. The last valuation, which was over a year ago, put the company's value at more than $150 million, which is kind of a mind-blowing number when you think about it. I mean, a strategy gaming studio being valued at over $150 million. But apparently, Paradox made over $70 million last year, a large chunk of that coming from a very successful launch of Cities Skyline. But they've also had a lot of other successful series. I've done some Crusader Kings on my channel. I don't show a ton of Paradox games on my channel, but I do really enjoy them. I played both the Victoria games quite extensively, and I'm looking forward to Hearts of Iron 4, which should be coming out shortly, hopefully, and I'm looking forward to doing a series on that game. But it's not often that you see a strategy studio go public. There's not a lot of strategy studios around, but it's even more rare that you see them being large enough to be traded publicly on a publicly traded stock exchange. So it's interesting. The CEO Wester said he wants to go bigger. He wants more games that make more money. He also explained that he wants more access to funds to help with acquiring other companies and also bigger projects. So going public will give the company the flexibility to make the kind of moves without depleting their bank account, in essence. And I'm reading, that's a segment, a little paragraph off of VentureBeat.com's a news article. I'll link it in the description here, talking about Paradox's decision to go public. I'll admit I'm a little bit uneasy about this. I mean, I think it's easy to be negative about these types of announcements because, I think a lot of people assume, well, you go public, you're just going to become, the slaves of the stockholders, and, big corporations will swoop in and buy, 30-40% of your company, and then they'll start making demands on you to, change your product and only focus on profits rather than quality. And then the next thing you know, you'll be the next EA, pushing games out just for quarterly results and, not paying any attention to quality and original content or anything like that. Wester did say on Twitter that they had no intention of giving up control of the company. I don't know exactly what that means. It could be that maybe Paradox will only float a certain amount of their company publicly, so maybe they'll only make, and this is total speculation, but this is just based on the fact that Wester said they have no intention to give up control of the company. That could just be good PR spin, or maybe they really, are only intending to put 20-30% of the company up for sale. Right now, Wester owns about 39%. He's by far the largest individual stockholder in the company. There's another investment house that has about 37%. So they're already, somewhat not in the pocket, but they're already somewhat beholden to another investor. This investment group owns almost 40% of their company. So I do think in that sense it's a positive. It's hard to see things dramatically changing when you've already got a venture capital type firm in your company that's already has its own demands as far as increasing profits and revenues. Going public is just going to introduce more more of those types of influences on your company. But again, depending on how much is made public, the company may retain control of itself. Wester may be by far the largest shareholder, and maybe between him and other internal shareholders within the company, if they have more than 50% of the company, then they may be somewhat insulated from stockholder pressure. Another thing I thought of was maybe they were using it as almost like a crowdfunding campaign. Wester did say that he wanted to, somehow, he was kind of vague on how they would do this, but he wanted to somehow allow employees and fans to be involved heavily in the stockholder program. Now, that to me smells of just kind of good PR. Like, yeah, we want our fans to be able to partake in our journey and be able to, share our successes. But there is some precedent for things like that, and I'm going to use some sports examples. I don't think this is the direction they're going, but Manchester United, for example, has an interesting setup where the company is publicly traded. You can go and you can buy part of Manchester United, which is like the biggest soccer team in the world in terms of value. So you can go and you can become an owner of it. I think it's like $35, or at one point it was like $35 a share. So you could go and for $35 you could buy one stock from someone else. But they had an interesting setup. So anyone could go and buy stock, and that would potentially allow them to make money if the company becomes, or if the team became more valuable or less valuable. But there are actually two kinds of stock. There's like a Series A and a Series B. So if the publicly traded stock on the exchange was like a Series B, which basically meant, sure, you get certain financial benefits for owning the team. The stock goes up, you can sell it, you can make some money. Potentially dividends could be issued to you as well by the team, where they may share some of their profits with you. But the Series A stock is where the real control resides. So, the actual family that owned Manchester United, despite the fact that they allowed the company to go public and raised a large amount of money, all of the team's decision-making rested with the Series A stock. So if you don't own that Series A stock, you have no ability and no rights to say, you're doing a bad job, change this or change that. So it was really kind of a feel-good move if you think about it. I mean, stock represents ownership. But what they were really doing is they were selling a lesser stake of ownership. They were saying you can share some of the financial burdens and the financial responsibilities of being an owner of this team. However, you don't get the same right or the same ability to tell us how to run our team. Despite the fact that you're an owner of this team, you're not really an owner. You're not really a decision maker. And I could see, maybe Paradox would go that way, where they would have some kind of setup where they'd have two classes of stock, and they'd have kind of the current owners have one class of stock, and then the new publicly traded stock would allow a lesser form of ownership, kind of secondary class of ownership, where they'd be able to generate all this revenue. I mean, you could sell, let's say that valuation of $150 million is accurate, and let's say they sell 30% of the company, all of a sudden Paradox ends up with $50 million in the bank or more. And they get all this money, and yet if they retain control, if they retain their freedom essentially from investors to be able to say what they want to do and how they want to run it, then they could get this massive influx of capital, which would really allow them to, not many small publishers like Paradox have that kind of money to throw around. Where they could really focus in on a project, make an absolutely killer game, make a AAA quality game from a niche publisher. They could do that because of an IPO. Or maybe they would go out and they would acquire someone else. I don't know exactly who they would acquire. I'm not really sure. I'm not really up on what companies are looking to be sold, but that kind of money would also allow them to go out and buy. Maybe they'd buy another strategy gaming company and kind of bring them into the fold of the Paradox universe. Or maybe they would start their own spin-off company that would focus on a different type of game. It's hard to say what they would do with the money, but it's certainly true that if all of a sudden Paradox got a $50 or $100 million in the bank, it would really allow them to worry less about the short-term financial successes of a game, and maybe look at a more long-term project that maybe is more costly, but they think has a longer-term payoff if the team focuses on it. So it'll be interesting to see. I'm not doom and gloom on it. I don't really know enough to know how I feel. I will say I am a little uneasy, but I think that's normal. You hear a niche publisher, and let's not be too flippant with the word niche. I could be misusing that. I mean, the VentureBeat article referenced that Paradox had over $70 million in revenue last year, so that's hardly niche. But in the grand scheme of things, Paradox is still a small fish in a very big pond. And strategy, it seems, anyways, is a relatively small genre in a very big pond. So, maybe if we're going to call them niche, if we're going to call them a smaller publisher, those are still big numbers. But it's not often you see these types of companies go public. And again, there's always that unease that maybe this financial pressure that's going to be put on them by shareholders could direct the company in a direction that people don't want to see. But again, there are mechanisms that Paradox could take if they decide to. It could depress the value of the stock if they don't give the owners the full control over the company, or maybe they just don't issue enough shares to allow whoever owns it, in addition to the current owners, to really be able to control much. But whatever the case, it's always easy to see the potential negatives of something like this, where you're basically no longer your masters. But there are certainly positives as well. Let's not forget that. A massive influx of capital into a company like this can go a long way in perhaps even propelling the entire strategy genre forward. A lot of times you wonder, like, oh man, if only this type of game was made, it could really change the way we think about strategy, but it just doesn't ever happen because it's too expensive. It's too, the scope is too big. But in a company like that just wouldn't have the revenue to be able to support such a project. It would just be too expensive. Well, going public could remove some of those kind of handicaps or handcuffs off of a company like Paradox. But really, at this point, I'm just kind of rambling. I'm just kind of spitballing. So I think, the important thing to know is that according to DI Digital and various other news outlets like VentureBeat, Paradox is looking at going public. The CEO of Paradox, Fredrik Wester, is ensuring, or at least claiming to his fans that Paradox has no intention to give up the control of the company. Somehow, and not entirely clear, but somehow they want their fans to be able to be given priority toward stock purchase, which I don't quite understand how that's possible from a business standpoint. That almost, individuals can't buy stock at an IPO. That's not how it works. When a company goes public, the big trading house, whoever's handling it, the qualified bidders, the financial insiders, always, because that's just the way that an IPO works, are the ones who make the initial purchase that gives the money to the company going public. And then the individual purchasers can come in and buy it from those original purchasees. But I don't remember the exact financial term, but basically you have to be some kind of like qualified broker to make an actual IPO purchase or something to that effect. So I'm not sure how they would give preferential treatment. It would pretty much break all the rules of every IPO ever, unless they're going with some other sort of non-traditional type stock program. But anyway, it's an interesting story. It'll be interesting to see where it goes, and I don't do a ton of news reports, but I wanted to share this with you guys. I thought it was a big deal, and I thought it was something that warranted being talked about. So I hope you bared with me, and I hope my rambling wasn't too much. Let me know what you guys think in the kind of the comment area. I think it could spur an interesting discussion. Yeah, thanks guys. Until next time, this is the Historical Gamer. Let me know what you think. Let me know if you liked the video, and let me know if you disliked it too. I don't do a ton of news stuff, so I'm really good about talking in circles and not ever getting to the point. But I hope I got the gist of this across. I'll link the article in the description, like I said, and until next time, guys, thanks again. This is the Historical Gamer saying thank you for watching, and I'm out.